Good afternoon. I'm Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and I am really pleased to do a Meet Our Member, one of the series. And our Meet Our Member is going to be with Chad Leehy, who is the head of strategic accounts and retail compliance for ControlCase, and they're an industry supporter member of the IFBTA. So welcome, Chad.
Thanks, Rob. Good to be with you again.
Well, listen, that's the key word again, because we've certainly had many conversations over the years, and we are so pleased to have you as a member. But I'm not so sure, while I may understand what ControlCase does, why don't you give us the overview of ControlCase, and then we'll just start the discussion and explore some of the ways that you work within our industry and might support our members.
Sounds great. Thanks, Rob. So ControlCase is primarily a security assessor. It's really what we focus on. So if there's a security framework or an assessment out there that involves IT, an IT assessment, then we probably do it. We're a global company. And I like to say we're big enough to support some of the biggest names out there. So we have really, really huge customers. But one of the things that I really respect about ControlCase is that we've been able to retain sort of a boutique atmosphere where we really partner with our customers, and it feels like you're our only customer. And I think that's unique in our space. I think that there's obviously other assessors out there that go to market a little differently than we do, but we've chosen to focus on security assessments and really make that our.
Well, I think we should break down some of the things that you just said, because I would choose to put you on the spot, if it's okay, on a couple of these things. So let's just start at the big piece. So you said that you're a global company. You work with a lot of larger companies out there. Do you also work with smaller companies?
Absolutely. And I think when you're a smaller company, it's probably even more critical to work with a company like us, because you're probably lacking resources, or you're struggling because of a budget, or you just need to understand the security framework that you're trying to assess. And I think having a company like us that is a true expert, but also a company that I like to say we have the heart of a teacher when we do assessments. We're not just checking boxes. We're actually trying to teach you the why behind why you're assessing for this particular standard. And I think that's important for a small organization to understand, why you're doing what you're doing. And hopefully next year you're able to be more efficient and save some money and, be educated on the assessment that we did.
Well, I think that's a good point. But the larger companies obviously are going to understand this. And they also understand that there are risks, especially if they have franchisees or licensees. But that's a smaller company, do you think that they're aware and they understand going in that they need the kind of services that ControlCase is providing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think if you asked that question 5 to 8 years ago, that might have been a no, or there was, starting to become some education around, say, PCI or SOC. Now, I think that those companies are aware. I think that they're starting to understand that they need it. They're just struggling in the environment that we're in. Listen, we know that budgets are tight right now. We know that people are trying to save money. But they also know that cybersecurity and their customers' data is incredibly important. And so
they know they could get shut down if they screw it up.
That's right. Revenue is incredibly important to protect. So I think that companies do understand now, even the small ones. We work with very small companies that they do understand, but they struggle, and because they have a limited knowledge of the standard. They have limited resources, but they also have to comply quickly in order to stay in business, because there are entities that are asking for proof. So it is becoming a much more known need for small businesses.
Well, I think that, so you said 6 to 8 years. I'd probably agree with you on that, because I think back to 6 or 8 years and people were scratching their heads on the word PCI, right? So they were trying to figure this thing out. We were both there. Okay, but look, here's the thing. Sometimes things happen in an industry, and I could see 3 things that have happened that would make people aware and understand the need. Well, a lot of things come back to COVID. The
Yes.
thing that forced people to take online orders and know their customer and really pushed the availability of loyalty systems and connecting with the customers and also their employees, by the way. So that connectivity, that really pushed more transactions going that way. So that would be number one. Number two might be the number of applications that went off-prem and went into the cloud. And that's pretty much everything today. And that's a lot of data, flowing through there. And there's a lot of channels and holes and things that come in. And then number three is, I think you started to allude to this. It's not just about protecting your revenue, but it's about protecting your reputation and brand. And we have seen, people who've been hit that way. So it would seem like the awareness has changed because of events around us.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of your points. And I think that what is interesting in our space is that prior to COVID, I think people were really starting to get the benefit of reducing scope, right? Scope was starting to get reduced. Encryption technology was really becoming pretty prevalent. And then COVID just destroyed that because, like you said, the transactions were moving to the curb. And personally, I think that cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open. We all know we like to drive up and we like to do online ordering. Convenience is there. And I think it was good for the restaurant and retail industry, but scope increased again. And now, with evolving technology, there's so many endpoints to protect. And that means security standards are going to get more complicated.
But whose responsibility is it? I think that there are people that have been breached and they sit there and they go, well, it's the responsibility of the POS guy or it's the responsibility of somebody else. So how do you do that demarcation and where does ControlCase, come into the whole picture?
Well, it's funny. I had that conversation with a very small business this morning. They said, I don't understand how I'm responsible. I'm using a merchant processor that's compliant. I'm using a website company that's compliant. Where the data is flowing through is where the liability lies. So if you are touching a credit card number at any point, then you are going to end up being liable. And that really is because the credit card companies push down the liability from their point to the banks, to the merchant processors. And ultimately, really, it becomes the responsibility of the merchant and the technology vendors that are out there. So the merchant has a lot of responsibility, but think about the point of sale companies these are our customers as well. The software companies that are processing credit cards, they are now having to assess PCI, SOC, ISO, maybe GDPR. That is where ControlCase comes in. And I think we have a very unique value proposition for a company like that, a software company or a point of sale company that has to assess for all these different certifications. It's incredibly expensive. It's confusing. It's time consuming. So one of the things ControlCase did that I think is really smart is we came up with this concept of One Audit. And One Audit allows a company to assess for multiple security frameworks at the same time. And so some of the same evidence is utilized. So instead of doing each separate audit at different times, we can now do it one time, use the same evidence, use the same project management team, and really reduce the cost and the effort. And I think that's really exciting. And other companies are not doing that. There's other companies that are just focusing on PCI or just focusing on SOC. We're able to do all of it at once and save time and effort.
Great. Well, thank you. This is Rob Grimes with the IFBTA and showcasing a Meet Our Member of ControlCase and having the pleasure of speaking with Chad Leehy today, the head of strategic accounts for retail compliance at ControlCase. And thank you for joining us. And until next time, have a great day.